Hello there, people of the internet. I'm out here at the landfill making some videos, shooting some guns, enjoying myself really. I'm definitely enjoying myself. Not too hot today. We just had some rain come down. It's nice and cool out. Very humid though. So I'm out here with a couple of things. One thing that I want to do, I got a Lee Metford I need some brass for. I need 303 British, so I'm firing some 303 British just to get brass to load up some black powder 303 for my Lee Metford rifle. That is a smokeless powder rifle, but it just does better with black powder, so that's what we're going to be using. So I'm kind of out here and I'm like, okay, well, while I'm out here, what do I want to make a film about? An episode. What are we going to talk about? And while I was thinking, I was just looking at this. And I was like, damn, this is one sexy gun. 1918 produced, #1 Mark III. This thing right here is over 100 years old now. It's amazing how well it's still firing. It's just incredible, the craftsmanship that went into this rifle to keep it up and going. And I'm sure a lot of people out there will agree with me that this is a sexy rifle. Now, that being said, this is not an ideal rifle if you find yourself in a bad situation. I do a lot of prepper talk on here. I try to keep people of the mindset and of the notion to be prepared for potential things that might happen in the future. And I definitely overplay things, and I do that on purpose to kind of kick people's butts in gear and to have them go off and start the preparations that they need to do in order to make sure that their family and whatnot gets through hard times, because we can guarantee that there's going to be hard times in the future. Like throughout the entirety of mankind, there has been hard times that pop up. There's been good times, and then there's been hard times. Like, there's no reason whatsoever that we should expect that humanity is just completely done with hard times, especially in the areas that we are at. A lot of people get comfortable here in the United States because we have a lot of things keeping us safe. The United States is a very safe country, but there are some potentials out there. There are some potential hard times that might give us some issues down the road. So in guise, that's the word I'm looking for, in guise of that topic, if you have yourself one of these, you're definitely not that far behind the curve, especially if you have 303 British ammunition on standby. The 303 Brit is not a very common cartridge to find here in the US, definitely not as common as, say, 308 or 223 or 9mm or things like that, but it is out there. You can go out there and find it. The likelihood of you finding it is just going to be significantly less, and whenever you do find it in good times, it's going to be more expensive than some of those more common cartridges. I hear a lot of people tell me that they're going to go out in bad times with their SHTF rifle and they pick some kind of full-powered bolt-action military surplus rifle. For the most part, these right here are great rifles, but they're definitely behind the curve whenever it comes to more modern solutions, especially in the ammo. If you have like an Ishapur 2A1 in 7.62 NATO, you're going to have a much easier time procuring ammunition than you would this right here in 303 British. If you have one of these in 303 British and it works well for you and you have the ammo for it, you know how to reload it, you got the components for it, etc., then by all means go ahead and do whatever it is that you're going to do. I'm just a guy on YouTube. I definitely can't stop you. But just because the rifle's sexy, just because you love it so much, that does not mean that that should be your go-to gun. Like, I love this rifle, but if something happened and I had to pick between this or my modern ARs, I would take the modern ARs every single day of the week, especially because they're in 5.56. I can get the ammunition very easily. It's relatively cheap in comparison to this right here. I can mount optics to it. It's got all the modularity and new stuff that you would want in a modern fighting rifle like an AR. Unlike something like this right here, you're kind of stuck with your iron sights unless you want to drill and tap the receiver. There are kind of workarounds that you can do. You got to sacrifice your iron sights in order to do it. If you're going to strap on a Picatinny rail, that does not involve drilling and tapping. Or I've seen some people like get sort of aftermarket things that strap onto the barrel itself that has a Picatinny rail on it. Those are not stable. Those are not going to hold a zero. Good luck hitting anything beyond 100 yards with that thing. So all that being said, these right here are also quite old guns. These malfunction. These have seen their heyday 100 years ago, back whenever they were being used in some of the most brutal conflicts that the world has ever seen. So these just are not going to be ideal. They're sexy, I love them, but they're not what they used to be. They're definitely worn out. A lot of them are rusted out. They used corrosive ammo. Your bullet's keyhole. If you get one of these old guns, like the standard of accuracy for them whenever they were new was 4 MOA. They're probably going to be worse than that nowadays, not unless you're hand loading your own competition match grade ammunition. Sexy, yes. Ideal, no. That being said, they still pack a hell of a punch. Like that right there, that 174 grain at 2,400 or so feet per second, that'll still do the same thing to a gelatinous person now that it would have done back then. If that was a target, then that would have been a target down. But I have to cycle this thing. I gotta get it chambered and ready to go. I gotta do that with every single shot. Unlike something like a self-loading rifle, which would just be the better option. If you short stroke this thing, if something goes wrong with the magazine, if something happens to where this rifle is not going to give you a shot every single time that you want it to give you a shot, you find yourself in a very bad situation. So speaking of bad situation, I lost my brass. The whole point of me shooting this thing is to get the brass. Where the hell are you? There you are. Now there are better options out there. They're not going to be ideal. This right here is a C308. This right here is essentially like a G3 clone for the civilian market here in the US. Chambered in 7.62 NATO/308. 20 round external mags, but you do have a Picatinny rail on this particular example. A lot of them do not. We got iron sights. This right here is a good option, but it's still not going to be ideal for a place like the United States. Something like the AR-15, potentially the AR-10, but that even has its drawbacks as well. Those are going to be your better options in comparison to something like this. That being said, still a sexy rifle. I would not feel undergunned if this right here was all I had, but the likelihood of you finding parts for this gun here in the US, if you need parts, which you will need parts, extractors wear out, springs wear out, this is just one of those things that there's wearable parts on the gun and you're going to need to swap them out at some point. Doing so on a rifle like this right here is just not going to be ideal. That, and this is a very heavy gun, especially considering that it's in 308. But with it being a self-loading rifle, you don't have to worry about cycling that bolt every time. There's been quite a few times where I was running competitions with bolt action rifles and I short stroke them, or I run out of ammunition and I got to fumble with a stripper clip and load those 5 rounds into the magazine. Or with the infield, you load 10 rounds because it's a 10 round magazine, and you load them in 5 round increments. Like, there's definitely a lot of hardship whenever it comes to a manual rifle like that. They're just so gosh darn sexy though. That's why everyone wants to end up using them. Versus something like this right here, definitely a sexy rifle, but a lot of people would agree that the Enfield is sexier, or your bolt action rifles are sexier. But boy oh boy, the muzzle brake on this thing sure gives me plenty of concussive blast. Wow, look at all that power behind these cartridges. I'm gonna shoot the dirt right here. I want to see what kind of crater we get. Here, let me angle this down a little bit so you guys can see too. Okay, I was kind of expecting more, but you know what? That's still impressive right there. I know I said I was expecting more, but I'll be honest, that was a pretty solid hit right there. How many more rounds do I have in this thing? I got 2 more rounds here. I would take this self-loading rifle over the Enfield, despite the fact I do like the Enfield better. But 7.62 NATO, 303 British, self-loading, not self-loading. Picatinny rail, if I want to mount an optic or something to this, I can do that. The standard of accuracy for guns like this, though, they're about on par with that of your 303, about a 4 MOA, which is about what you would come to expect from a fighting rifle. So I'm going to aim at that pile of garbage out there. Let's see if we can get some stuff to fly around. Well, nothing flew around there. Let me try that pile of garbage. Oh, there we go. We had some stuff flip around over there. But sexy rifle, still not going to be ideal. But this sexy rifle is less sexy than that sexy rifle, but if I had to pick between these two, I would take this one every single day of the week. If you are using something for beyond fun, if you're using something for an actual practical purpose, don't base your decisions off of a rifle being sexy. The amount of people I hear say, I love my Mosin, it's what I would take, I don't care about the consequences, etc., etc. They just really want to take their Mosin and use it for whatever purposes it is that they're going to use it for. That is not a good idea. Definitely don't want to get clapped by Bubba from the tree line with his Mosin. That would not be an ideal situation, but there's so many variables that go into a bad time where something like a Mosin would just not keep up with something that is a self-loading rifle, especially if we have an AR. If we have a squad of guys with these right here and a squad of guys with ARs, and they're at typical combat distances, the guys with the ARs are probably going to come out on top just because of that rapid shot placement, easy target acquisition. What am I trying to say here? The recoil of the 223 cartridge is significantly less than that of your, say, 308 cartridge. And so as a result, you can get a lot of rounds very accurately downrange and hope that one of your rounds hit your target, versus something like this right here, where you definitely have to be a little bit more picky, especially because you're carrying less ammunition. So I think that's all I have to say about this. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.